Hello YouTube, and welcome to part 21 of our Realism Overhaul series. Last time we actually got someone into space, and this time I'm going to try to keep someone there. Well, of course not forever, but just at least for a few orbits. So first thing we're going to do is open up the gamma, and I'm going to make a few changes. First of all, we're going to put some new extendable solar panels on. Second, we can see that one of our fuel tanks seems to be misaligned. I've noticed that sometimes where they get messed up, so I'm just going to realign that and put that back up there. And I think I have too much fuel in here. I don't think I need that much, so I'm actually going to adjust that. Next thing we're going to do is I want to get some more thrust off the pad, so I think I'm going to put on some solid rocket boosters. So we'll set those up for a good burn time. And I'm going to add a aerodynamic nose cone on those guys, so they look pretty good. And now we're going to add some separation motors. So I think I'll do two on the top and kind of angle those like that. And then I'm going to put one more on the bottom, and that should sort of push it away from the craft as we jettison those. So I'll tie those in with the separators right there. And now, just the way I have the symmetry lined up, I need to manually do these on both sides, but I think that'll be pretty close to being lined up. And just double check that burn time, readjust some staging. You can see all those separation motors there. And now that we've added those solid rocket boosters, we're kind of over our mass limitation, so we need to add some more guidance units. And here I'm going to put some ullage motors, so instead of staging this while it's still in the fairing, what I'm going to do is I'll fire off those separation motors. That'll separate us, and then I'll fire off the main engines. So there, I'm just going to move my decoupler a little bit so it looks better, and put on the nose cone, the fairing for that, and we'll just recheck our staging one more time. But other than that, I think this looks pretty good. Of course, there's a lot of things to make sure that we have staged properly. And we'll save this, we'll call this the Gamma 2, and we'll set that to build. So we can see, taking a look at our tech tree, next thing up is stage combustion. I think that'll help us unlock some new engines, but we'll go ahead and warp to completion of the Gamma 2. And now I think before we launch this thing, we can go ahead and roll it out to the pad, but we'll want to see if there's any science achievements that we can unlock with this mission. So we'll head over here into mission control, and we can see, go to the available contracts. We can get science from space around Earth, so that'll be easy. What else do we have here? Atmospheric analysis. Don't think we're going to do that. First crewed orbital. I think we can do that with this vessel. Let's see what else there is. Past the Kármán line crewed, we can do that. Successful re-entry. This one is for, I think it's, yeah, there it is, crew unmanned, so we're not going to do that. Explains high. This is just getting above 65 kilometers, so we can do that one. Let's see what else there is. X-plane supersonic. This we need to hold a specific altitude and speed, so I'm not going to do that because I'm going to pass right through that. So I think that's about all we can do with this. So we'll go ahead and exit mission control, and I think we should be good to launch. So we'll go ahead and warp to the morning before we do that. We will click launch. We will select a pilot. I think this time we're going to choose Arcady, and we'll go for launch. So here I'm just setting up my initial parameters, fire up those main engines, and then as we separate, we'll fire those solid rocket boosters. Now, of course, I had this sped up a little bit, otherwise it'd be a really long launch. So we'll go ahead and start pitching over now. One thing I wish I could do would be have realistic thrust curves on those solid rocket boosters. Now I know it's possible, but I just haven't done it. So when we separated that, we could see we had too much thrust in those separation motors, so we'll need to reduce that. I've seen some people that have put together solid rocket boosters that do have thrust curves, so that might be something worth considering. Before we separated those solid rocket boosters, we fired up our sustainer engine as well. That should help keep our thrust curve pretty even. pushing about 4 Gs right now, just about as these boosters are about to flame out, 5 Gs, so that's pretty acceptable. All right, I think we peaked around 6 Gs. We'll go ahead and separate those. We don't need that nose cone anymore. We're above the Kerbal line, so that should give us some science. Wait for that main stage to boost, to not boost, but burn out. All right, and now we will do our separation motors and fire up those AJ-10s. That worked pretty well. Now we're just angling ourselves around. I'm going to go ahead and extend these solar panels. And so far I'm really happy with this launch. We're still going kind of high. I don't know if I would really like to go that high. Hopefully in future launches we can stay a little bit lower. Really take use of the Abort effect. But this is going to be a while for this this AJ-10 to get us into a pretty close to circular orbit. My plan is we'll get just under a circular orbit, and then we'll kill those AJ-10s, and we'll separate, and then those that piece can re-enter and burn up, and then we'll just use the little onboard engine that we have to finally circularize and do any orbital maneuvering that we need to do. Now I'm adjusting my pitch and heading just to kind of maintain pretty close to prograde, and I'm just keeping an eye on my time to apoapsis, trying to keep that as low as possible. I think we're getting pretty close to where we will turn this engine off. You can see our periapsis is about, there we go, so that's pretty good. So we'll separate and use that little onboard engine to circularize ourselves. This thing has 20 minutes of fuel. I think that's what that engine's actually rated at, so that should be plenty to circularize. And right now I'm just modifying persistent rotation to be relative to the sun. That way, once I get this thing in a good position, I could point myself at the sun. That way those solar panels are really soaking up as much solar energy as possible. Getting pretty close to a circular orbit, so that's good. Alright, so now we've successfully inserted somebody into orbit. I'm just going to try to aim this at the sun. There's no good way to actually target the sun. I wish there was. But just by adjusting the camera, I think that's pretty good. So I'll kind of lock that in and time warp. And we can see we're staying pretty much angled at the sun. So we can go ahead and get some science while we're up here. I actually can't transmit this because I don't have an antenna strong enough to reach down to the ground. But looking at our contracts, we see we need to be in orbit for at least a day. So I think I will time warp. Let's see if I can get any more science while I'm up here. There we go. Save that guy. And we will time warp for a day. See, we're still pointing at the sun. Looks like we have plenty of fuel, or well, not fuel, but oxygen and stuff to last a day. All right, we're getting, oh, wrong button. So we did a day in 4 hours. So we have completed that contract. So now I think it's time to set up a maneuver node to go back to Earth. So I want to kind of land in the daylight side. So I'll put a maneuver node in the nighttime side, and this should bring us pretty close back to the US. I think I'm trying to land in the Pacific here, so we'll just need to do a 50 meters per second burn on the nighttime side. So we'll initiate that, and while we burn here, I will apologize for taking so long to get another video out. Life has been crazy with work, kids, and just general stuff, so hopefully I'll find some time to work on episode 22. Some things that I'd like to do is maybe start working on getting a space station up there. We haven't done any docking, so that would be pretty critical for a station. I'd also like to see if we can visit some other planets. So we might need to upgrade our engine technology a little bit, but I think we have stuff in the works to do that. So here I ditched that service module. We don't need that anymore because we're on a ballistic trajectory back to Earth. And now this capsule has descent mode again, so I think I'm going to turn that on. Alright, there we go. And as we get deeper and deeper into the atmosphere, we should see the aerodynamic effects taking hold. I'm just trying to keep it somewhat lined up to where I want it. And now, of course, using that descent mode means that we should stay in the atmosphere a little bit longer. Sometimes with some of the real flights, I think they were actually able to generate enough lift that they got themselves out of the atmosphere again, but I don't think we're going to see that happen here. You can see we're still picking up speed as we descend, so we need that to go down. And we are descending at roughly 100 meters per second, so that's pretty good. I did download the 1.2.0 preview, and that has some cool new features that I really like to incorporate into my Realism Overhaul, but I don't know when that will be updated. One thing is they have this little computer that there's actually a mod in here that kind of simulates that to where you can scan what's below you, but it'll show you where biomes are. So that would be kind of useful for whenever you're kind of hunting and pecking for some science. Here you can see I just added the vertical speed indicator so we can get a little better idea. Our vertical speed's actually going down right now. I guess we're starting to generate more and more lift. So that's going to prolong the time that we're in the atmosphere, but hopefully should keep us from, over G'ing like we almost did last time. The only risk we run is the longer we're in the atmosphere, the more that ablator is getting worn down. So we can see right now we still have plenty of ablator yet left. We are slowing down, so that's good. Vertical speed is now at around 80 meters per second, and is even slowing down from here. So as we get lower, we should start pitching down more. We should expect to see that start going up pretty soon, I would think. Let's go ahead and just keep this centered. I think that was our service module exploding back there. This really likes to roll. And now it looks like we are picking up some, well, I thought we were. We're wavering right around 78 meters per second of descent. So now we're slowing that back down again. I guess it depends on how much we pitch or actually roll. If we roll to the side, we would actually start to fall faster because that lift vector is not pointing straight up. But this is actually a pretty long descent. I think we used up about a third of our ablator already. We can see our vertical speed now is 70 meters per second. It's still slowing down, so as we get deeper and deeper into the atmosphere, that lift effect is more prevalent. Here, I'll go ahead and do that so we can see our ablator. We used over half of it now, and now we are we're slowing down a lot more. So now we are going to drop more because we don't have as much lift. But we only have about a quarter of our ablator left, a little bit more. So this is going to be cutting it close. Pulling 1G here, so I think it might be good to turn descent mode off. And what that's going to do is, you can see our vertical speed now is really increasing a lot more rapidly than it was before. That should slow us down faster. You can see we're doing about 3 or almost 4 Gs now. But it means that ablator won't get used up as much. Down to 29, 28 units. 27, so pretty much use up 90% of that ablator. That's something that you don't normally see in stock KSP, but looks like we peaked around 8 Gs there, which was much better than last time. We are landing, looks like in between California and Hawaii. So hopefully we communicated ahead of time and got someone to come pick us up. And now we just sort of fall back to Earth. Pretty uneventful. Some good milestones in science. First time someone has been in orbit. First time, definitely the longest that they've been in space for over a day. I think some of the ones that are coming up are sending multiple people to space, so we'll need a different capsule for that, or we can do Kerbal style and stick 2 capsules together. Some other milestones I think are staying in space longer, like 2 days. Go ahead and deploy our parachute there. To do that, we would need some life support modules. I think that capsule doesn't quite have enough for a full 2 days, but well, actually, I think it would be cutting it really close. We did a day and 5, almost 6 hours, and we used just over half. So we probably could do it to 2 days, but we would not have much reserve at all. So that's kind of pushing it. All right, here we go. Splash down in the Pacific, and we completed our contracts. So we'll go ahead and recover this. See, we got some science for recovering it. Hey, and this guy moved up a rank, so that's good. So now we have 35 science. Is there anything that is useful for us to get? We can get high-speed flight, so sure, why not? That'll give us a point to upgrade our facilities with. But everything else, oh, we actually already unlocked that one, I forgot. So, do stage combustion, looks like we've already done that. Yeah, I think that's actually what we're researching right now. What about general construction? Nope, it's not changing our available science points. Trying to see if there's anything else that we can use 30 science points on, but I don't see anything. So go ahead and leave here. And I'm going to do a bonus clip. One thing that I never got to show is how our launch abort system works. So I set up this little scenario for us. We're going to go ahead and fire off our engines, and now do our solids and separate. And we're going to get a little bit of distance from the tower, and then try to punch that abort button, which for some reason is grayed out. But I think I can use backspace, which on my Mac is like option delete or function delete or something. And that should fire us off. Here we go. So we have cleared the rocket, and we've entered just a little spin. That's by design. It tries to pull us more one way than another. That way we don't just go straight up on top of the rocket. And we will just stage everything here. I guess I could set up an action group that would just decouple that, but fire off our parachute. And you can see we are should be just fine. So we can watch some things explode around us as we float down to the ground. Next episode, I think I'm going to maybe work on setting up the beginning works of a space station. Maybe we'll try to send some life support system up there, or maybe just some solar array to give us power as we dock things. We are going to need something with a docking port, so we might use that as a target to test docking with. I think there's a contract to actually do some docking, so that would be good to practice rendezvousing and actually docking with something. But until then, I guess I will see you next time.